or of course lose something or someone out the window. It is not a two-way radio, but it is still a good way to get in contact with me. I'll figure out what's going on back there and help you out however necessary. There is no eating, drinking, smoking. If you have a cell phone, I would actually recommend silencing that. If not for the other people in the tram car with you, then for the animals. If we're passing right next to an animal and your phone makes a loud, weird noise, well, there's a chance that animal will no longer be next to us. Not only do we want to give everyone an equal opportunity to see the animals today, but we also just want to make sure that the animals feel safe here in their homes. And last but not least, I want everyone to remain seated on our tour. We're not going to be stopping too much once we get past these gates, but with animals, you never really know. Every now and then, somebody will walk right in front of my tram and I have to stop, and I don't want anybody trying to fight gravity today, because, trust me, 9 times out of 10, gravity is going to be the winner in that fight. We are officially in free roam now. We just got to wait for that last gate to close behind us. As I said earlier, we're getting a good look at Horseshoe Lake here. We do have some buildings out on the lake. One of those is just an A-frame cabin. If you've ever wanted to spend the night out here in free roam, you can actually rent that cabin out and do just that. But we also have a brick building out there that belonged to Dr. David and Connie Hellier, the park benefactors. David and Connie came out here in the 1930s looking for a vacation home to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city of Tacoma. They found Horseshoe Lake, and in 1937 they bought 100 acres of land around the lake for $450. That may not sound like a lot, and honestly, it wasn't, even back then. That'd be like getting 100 acres of lakefront property for $9,000 today. The reason they got the land for so cheap was because they bought it from a logging company. There was logging here in the 1920s, and in 1924 a wildfire broke out, which burned down everything that was left. So, the loggers didn't have much use for it, and they just wanted to get rid of it. Now, when the Helliers first came out, they started a cattle ranch with their 3 daughters. And over the years, they accumulated over 500 acres of land. Now, they did eventually move out here full-time, but as time went on, their 3 daughters got old. They were approached by a land but David and Connie knew the place was destined for more than that. So, they turned them down and started looking for places to donate the land to turn it into a wildlife park, where people of all ages could come and learn about the many different animals who make their homes here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the Helliers went to a lot of different places trying to donate the land, but most places turned them down. They either didn't see the appeal of a wildlife park, or even if they did, the Helliers wanted to keep living here, and the people who were thinking about the donation didn't want to let them keep living out here. We have some black-tailed deer here on our right. We're going to be seeing a lot of these guys because it's the newest animal out here in free roam. In fact, a good game to play while you're out here is try and spot the most black-tailed deer, because you really do have a lot of them, and they're usually traveling in groups like that called bands. Those bands are usually made up of anywhere from about 3 to 10 members or so. So where you see one black-tailed deer, you will probably see many others. So keep your eyes peeled and see who is the best deer spotter in your tram today. Now, thankfully, the Helliers did eventually find some place to donate the land. In 1971, Metro Parks Tacoma heard about it. They were more than happy to accept those 500 acres. And in 1975, Northwest Trek opened its gates for the first time. Now we are entering into our first large meadow habitat. Now you'll never guess what we decided to call this first meadow. That is right, we called it First Meadow. I bet you can't guess what we named our second one. Now, the grass out here in First Meadow is really healthy, and that is actually thanks to our bison. Now, bison may seem big, tough, and strong, which they are, but they're also avid gardeners. As the bison walk through the tall grass, they're actually picking up seeds in their fur. And when they roll around in their wallows, the big patches of dirt you might notice out here, they're actually planting those seeds. Any seeds planted in a bison wallow are going to have a really good start to life, as those wallows tend to hold in moisture, making the young plants drought resistant. And they're also fire resistant as well. If a fire were to break out here in free roam, there's a really good chance that any young plants that were growing in the bison wallows would survive and help regrow the entire meadow just from those wallows. Bison are also the ones who are tilling the soil. Now, bison are the heaviest land mammals in North America. The cows usually weigh around 1,000 pounds each, give or take a couple hundred pounds. But those bulls weigh anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds. So you pair all that weight with their sharp hooves, and just by walking across the ground, they're going to be tilling the soil and aerating it, making it much easier for new plants to grow. Now, bison are a keystone species, and that means that if the bison disappear, so do a lot of other things. The bison are the ones making these places drought resistant. All those wells that they dig and the seeds that they plant make it to where these places aren't likely to dry out and turn into deserts. And not only that, but while they're walking across the ground tilling the soil, they might dig up any young trees that are trying to take root, making sure these places don't grow up into forests. Now, at one point in time, we actually lost almost all of our bison in America, and that resulted in the loss of an estimated 99% of all of our prairies and grasslands. We are going to be leaving our grasslands behind for a little bit, though, as we enter into a wooded area. Now, it's going to be pretty hard to spot animals through all the trees here, but luckily for us, we are predators. We have forward-facing eyes, and our eyes are really good at catching movement. The twitch of an ear, the flick of a tail, our eyes are really good at spotting that, spotting any animals who may be hiding. So keep your predator eyes peeled, and let's see who we can find today. And as a reminder, do try to keep all kids fully inside the tram at all times. I still see kids out the windows, guys. Now, we are entering our wooded area, and while it is not an animal, if you look on the left-hand side next to the road, there is going to be an elk antler. This antler was dropped by one of our bull elk probably last year, maybe the year before, and it weighs anywhere from about 15 to 25 pounds or so. So those bulls can have upwards of 50 pounds of antler on their head at the height of the season. The bulls will spend about 3 to 6 months or so growing those antlers out. Those antlers are actually the third fastest natural growing material known to man, as they can grow over an inch a day. So of course, in order for them to do that, the elk have to do a few things. They have to get a lot of rest, eat a lot of tasty, nutritious food, and of course, not get sick or injured. The healthier a bull is, the larger and faster his antlers are likely to grow, so they're a really good indicator to the cow elk which of the bulls is the healthiest and who is likely to produce the healthiest offspring the next year. Now, currently our Roosevelt elk bulls do not have those huge impressive antlers just yet. They're still growing them in, so they are covered in velvet. Velvet is a soft, fuzzy vascular tissue that is supplying blood flow to the antlers, helping them grow. Once those antlers are fully grown, that velvet's going to shrivel up and dry out, and it's going to get pretty itchy because of that. So those guys are going to be rubbing their antlers on anything and everything they can, trying to get that itchy velvet off and remove those nice hard antlers. And when that happens, it usually means that their rut season is right around the corner. Coming up on our right-hand side, in this grove of cedar trees, we do have a supplemental feeding station, so it's pretty common to see animals back there. And I do see a band of Columbian black-tailed deer. Now, those guys are a subspecies of mule deer, and they're actually one of the smaller members of the deer family. And like I said, they are definitely the most numerous animal we have out here in free roam. Now, these guys are really good at hiding, and part of that comes from their fur color, of course. Their fur color actually changes throughout the different seasons to help them blend in better. But they do have a survival instinct that actually beats our predator eyes. Our predator eyes are great at catching movement, but they are not so great at picking out shapes and fine details. So what those deer will do is if they sense danger, they will actually freeze. They will stand perfectly still. There's a pretty good chance that when they do that, our eyes go right over the top of them and we don't even notice they're there. So that just means that there's going to be deer that you never see on this tour, even if they're maybe even standing just like 20 feet away from us. Simply because my eyes don't always catch them, and there's a good chance that your eyes won't either. Now, I'm looking up the right-hand side to see if I see anybody up on the ridgeline. I'm not seeing anybody right now, but I do see plenty of game trails. Those are the pathways that are zigzagging side to side up that hill. Now, you might be wondering why the paths don't just go straight up the hill, and the reason is walking up a steep hill like that takes a lot of energy. Animals want to conserve that energy however they can, wherever they can. The prey species want that energy just in case they need to run away from a predator, and the predators want that energy just in case they need to chase after any prey. So by going side to side, they may have to walk just a little bit farther, but it takes a lot less energy to do so. Next time you need to get up a really steep hill, try walking side to side and see if it's any easier. We are leaving the woods behind for a little bit as we go back into our first meadow area. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the bison. There used to be over 60 million bison roaming around America, and their herds were huge. They could range into the thousands. In fact, they were so big that one of the ways people actually counted how many bison were in a herd, it wasn't even by counting the bison. It was by counting how many days it took a bison herd to make it through an area. While the bison were going through an area, they were doing something really important. They were cutting the grass. Now, of course, for them it was just a tasty meal, but it was accomplishing the same thing. That shorter grass was allowing sunlight to reach into the younger plants, filling them with nutrients for when it was their turn to be eaten.
What's up, Lewis?
And it also helped to prevent wildfires. The shorter grass was less likely to catch fire, and it wasn't quite as devastating if it did. And you gotta remember that what goes in must come out. All bison are gardeners, and all gardeners know how important fertilizer is. We're passing by some of those bison wallows to our left. Now these are actually bison bathtubs. Now I'm sure if you were to roll around in one, you probably wouldn't feel very clean, but it works really well for the bison. It gets off any bugs, insects, or parasites that might be bothering them, and the mud and dirt that gets on their skin acts as a barrier between them and any future bugs that come along trying to bite them. And during the rainy season, those wallows will actually fill up with water, and they become watering holes for a lot of different animals, even ones that don't normally go out into the open meadows. We are going to be entering into a new habitat up ahead. Now this next habitat is super important as every human on Earth relies on it, whether they live near one or not. So can anybody guess what this next habitat is going to be?
I'm still here, chat, just letting you know. I can't talk
as
wetland
much.
Habitat,
Congratulations, you're right, because we are now entering into Mink Marsh. Now, Mink Marsh is a seasonal wetland, which means it disappears during the hottest months of summer, but it does refill during the rainy season, which is really important because this is actually where we get our water from. In fact, if you live in the area, there's a pretty good chance you actually get your drinking water directly from Mink Marsh here.
I'm at a wildlife right now.
Now, I'm sure you're probably looking down into that water and you're thinking, there's no way I'm going to drink that. And I don't blame you, as that water really is not very clean. Luckily for us, though, it will be. As that water seeps down between the many different layers of mud, rock, clay, sand, and everything else, it is getting cleaner and cleaner. And by the time it ends up in the aquifer underneath, it is going to be nice, fresh drinking water for everyone. Which is really important, because while the world is about 70% water, only about 3% of that is actually available to us. Well, actually, 3% is actually drinkable, as most water on Earth is salt water, and we can't drink that. And of the 3% that is drinkable fresh water, only 1% of that is available to us, as most fresh water is held up in glaciers, or is simply too far underground for us to reasonably reach. So it's really important that we protect our wetlands for every human and animal that relies on them, which again is all of us. And we humans especially rely heavily on these wetlands because the average American uses about 100 gallons of water a day. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, there's no way I use that much water, but it does add up. Every time we go to the bathroom, wash our hands, do laundry, do dishes, or just use that water for general cooking, cleaning, and of course drinking, we are using up water. And we're lucky enough to know just how important these areas are today, but people didn't always realize that these areas were important. They'd come across these places and they thought they were wastelands. So they would drain them, dump in them, fill them in. And it's actually estimated that we lost about 50%. That is half of all of our wetlands. And not only that, but about 1/3 of all endangered and threatened animals make their homes in places just like this. I want you all to take a good listen out your windows, see if you can hear, or maybe even see any animals who are making their homes out here in the marsh today.
So good to see us. If I just close. I don't see anything. The camera. I'm gonna
So is there a water habitat here? Okay.
Now, did you guys happen to see or hear anybody out there? If you didn't, that's alright. Just because we don't see or hear an animal in an area, it doesn't mean it doesn't live there. I know for a fact that there are plenty of turtles, frogs, newts, snakes, lizards, and of course plenty of bird and
Rail fanners, I'm going out rail fanning next week.
out there in the
Just so I know I'm
marsh.
going out next week with a friend.
On our
and another rail
right-hand side,
fanner.
we do have another type of wetland. Now, mink marsh on the left is seasonal, so it disappears during the hottest months of summer. But here on the right are beaver pools. These are a permanent wetland that stick around all year long. These were created by, you guessed it, beavers, who came here in the 40s. They dammed off a creek that used to flow through here and made these pools. Now, as far as we're aware, there are no more beavers out here in free roam, but the pools they created are still here and enjoyed by many different animals. And we can even still see signs of that launch that they built. Now, if you guys are trying to think of ways that maybe you can help protect places like these without going out buying up 500 acres of land or trudging out in the marshes all the time as a conservationist, there's plenty of easier ways to help these places out. Being conscious of your fresh water usage, taking shorter showers, or just remembering to turn the water off while you're brushing your teeth are good ways to conserve our fresh water. And just recycling, making sure that our waste products don't end up here in these wetlands. Those are great ways to help protect these areas for people and animals, just like this bull bison here. This bull bison to our right is Meadow. Now, he's a pretty old guy. He mostly just minds his own business. Now, I do know that Meadow is a bull for a few different reasons. For one thing, he is by himself. Bull bison are solitary animals, so they hang out by themselves for most of the year, really only joining up with the cow herd during the rut season in the summer. And he also has L-shaped horns. Bull bison use their horns for fighting, so their horns go out and up in the shape of an L, whereas the cow horns curl inwards, kind of like a C. He also has a really thick cape of fur on his head, chest, and shoulders that helps to protect him from the other bull's horns while they're fighting during the rut season. If you keep your eyes to the right, though, you're going to see another animal. I can see our cow herd of Roosevelt elk. Those are the cows, calves, and any juvenile bulls who aren't quite ready to leave their mom just yet. Now, those guys are Roosevelt elk, which is actually the largest species of elk in the world, and the second largest deer species. The only thing bigger than these guys is going to be the moose, at least in terms of the deer family. Now, all that size did get them into trouble, though. Being the largest of anything is sure to bring a lot of attention, but especially when you can grow such impressive antlers. So people used to come from all over the world just to hunt them. And before you knew it, their numbers started to dwindle. There was one guy out here named Teddy who loved to go out and hunt the elk every year, but he noticed that every year he went out, it was getting harder and harder to find the elk. And when he did find them, it was usually in smaller and smaller numbers. So Teddy started thinking about what he might be able to do to help protect the elk.
Are you still in the chat?
And luckily for Teddy and the elk, there was something he could do. You see, Teddy was also known as President Theodore Roosevelt. In 1905, Washington State put an end to elk hunting for a few years, and in 1909, President Roosevelt dedicated Mount Olympus National Monument as a protection site for the Olympic elk. And because of all the things that Roosevelt did for the elk, they started to be known as Roosevelt's elk, and that is what they are still called today. They are definitely a conservation success story, as there's over 50,000 of them here in Washington, and they're one of the many game species people can go out and hunt at certain times of the year, so long as they have the right license and tags. Now, if you guys look to our left-hand side, we got some wetlands over here that are drying up a little bit. Now, those were actually created by the bison. Those are old bison wallows. I told you that those wallows would hold moisture. Well, you give them enough time and enough moisture, and they become seasonal wetlands.
I see a white duck. White swan. Yes, this one. Mama, left side. This light.
Now, if you look to our right-hand side, you've probably noticed that big white bird out there. Now, that is the big white bird, as that is a trumpeter swan. That is the largest flying waterfowl in the world. They typically weigh around 25 pounds or so and have a wingspan of about 6 to 8 feet wide. However, the largest trumpeter swan ever recorded weighed a whopping 38 pounds and had a 10-foot 2-inch wingspan. So they're definitely very large birds. They're also a conservation success story, much like those elk. You see, at one point in time, there was only 40 trumpeter swans left. And the reason for the thing their antlers and their backs. Now, those are half grown. They're twice that size in just 6 months. Now, thankfully, people did think that the trumpeter swan was worth saving, so a lot of breeding programs started up, including one we used to have here at Northwest Trek. And we no longer have a breeding program here, though, because it is no longer needed. Trumpeter swans are considered secure in the wild, so they're repopulating just fine on their own. It's very unlikely that their numbers will ever be back to the population that it was before, due to that habitat loss. But they are still going very strong out in the wild today. If you look to our left, you're going to see another white animal. Those are mountain goats there under that. I'd be thinking that the white fur on those mountain goats is to help camouflage them and hide them from predators. But honestly, they don't really have many predators. Their main worry in life is just going to be gravity, and even then, they don't have a lot to worry about, as they are excellent climbers. They have soft, squishy pads on the bottom of their feet that help them grip onto rocks and cliffs where they live. That way they don't slip and fall.
How's everyone's day doing today?
They can put their front feet above their head onto a tiny cliff ledge and pull themselves right up the side of the cliff with just those front legs.
Hope you are doing great.
And those legs are really short, and their knees are low to the ground, which means they have a low center of gravity, so they have excellent balance. If you have to be strong enough to pick up a mountain goat with one hand, they can very easily balance on the palm of that hand. We do have our herd of elk over here to our right. You can see a couple of those juvenile
we have animals right there.
growing in their very first sets of antlers.
That's cool.
Those are spike bulls. They're going to stick with mom for probably another year or two.
Look at that, guys. We got animals right there.
Now, I did see another herd a little farther ahead. We'll see them in a couple of minutes. That would be our bison herd that we're going to see pretty soon. It's not that surprising that the bison are here in Second Meadows. This is one of their favorite spots.
We got animals right there.
Now, there used to be over 60 million bison roaming around America, but their numbers were cut down to just 300. And I don't mean 300,000, I mean 300 animals total. And the reason for that was westward expansion. After the Civil War, the U.S. government wanted to get rid of the native people who lived here. But so soon after one war, they didn't want to start another one by attacking those people directly. At least not yet. So instead, they went after the bison. They knew the bison were really important to native people. And
this is a cool chat. This is cool. Do you like this stream, guys?
And other materials. The government knew that if they got rid of the bison, the native people would be forced to leave as well. Thankfully, there were people who spoke out against the killing of them. One of those people was known as Buffalo Bill Cody. Now, Buffalo Bill was actually famous for hunting the bison, as he was said to have killed about 4,000 of them in just 18 months. That's almost 25 bison a day. Now, unlike a lot of the other hunters at the time, Buffalo Bill did use the meat and materials he got from those bison. He would sell the meat and materials to the railroad workers and their families, as well as to the U.S. Army. It was thanks to Buffalo Bill and many, many other people, all lobbying against Congress, that the bison season was eventually closed. Though that wasn't the end of the trouble for the bison. As with only 300 members left, it was going to be really hard to build back the overall population. People did want to help though, so a lot of people went out, rounded up whatever bison they could find, and they put them on farms in domesticated herds. Now, unfortunately, due to the lack of bison on those farms, most of those bison got mixed in with cattle as a way to try and preserve the genetics. So while there is about 500,000 bison today, only about 11 to 30,000 are actually considered a true bison.
Oh
And
wow.
of those, only about 5,000 are
Look at that.
relatively free out in the wild. On tribal lands or in national parks like Yellowstone. So all the bison that are born here are super important for the future of their entire species. We do have a bison bull over to our right,
That's
walking
cool.
away from that herd. But we also have a better look at some mountain goats. Now, I do have to tell you something about mountain goats. These girls here on our left, looks like we have Eleanor and Fairchild here. Oh, wait, Eleanor is Mahani. Mahani's our billy goat. He's the one with the shorter horns. Now, these guys are liars. Their fur is not white. It is see-through. It's transparent. And they are not actually goats. Mountain goats are part of a they are a subspecies of bovidae called, I think it's Coridae, which means those mountain goats are antelopes. You gotta love the scientific classifications. We're going to be going through our bison herd though, so I do ask, again, everyone stay completely inside the tram. We have some brand new babies, and their moms are still pretty protective of them. One of them especially is a first-time mom, so she gets pretty stressed out, and she wants to protect her calf, so. We do have some calves that were born last year. We have Samson, who's out here somewhere. He was actually born Memorial Day weekend last year, so he is officially a year old. We also have Breezy. I do see Breezy kind of in the middle of the herd on the left. Breezy is 2 years old. And then we also have Chili and Misty, who were born last year as well. The reason I'm saying is one of the bison cows, the very protective one, because she has the newest baby and she is a first-time mom, is right on the road feeding her calf. So again, I want everyone to stay completely inside the tram. I'm going to try and see if...
Look at that! Wow.
Alright, looks like she's thinking about moving. Again, I'm giving her space simply because she is first-time mom. She's super protective of that calf, and the calf is eating. There we go. Alright, she's gone off to the right-hand side. And we're going to speed past her, though, simply a little bit, simply because we don't want to stress her out. If you want to see another bison calf who's a little bit older, if you look to the left, you're going to see our bison calf, Torrent, who was born a few weeks ago. This calf here with the blue ear tag, that is Misty. A little farther back, we have Samson and Chili. And then, of course, we have little Torrent here.
Hi chat, hello. How you guys doing today? Seeing some cool animals here.
You can see the little nubs on his head as he's growing in his horns. Horns, unlike antlers, they stick around their entire life. They grow throughout their life. So those horns get bigger with age. Whereas the antlers, they do sometimes get bigger with age, but they will also drop off. So they just regrow them every year. These guys don't do that. They keep those horns all year. If something happens to the horn and it breaks, it's going to be a lot shorter than the other one, simply because it takes time to regrow. Now, this forest we're in right now is a pretty young forest. It's only about 100 years old. Obviously, I know that because, well, I know this place burned down 102 years ago. But there's plenty of other ways to tell the age of a forest, so I want you guys to look around, see if there's anything sticking out to you that could be telling you just how old this place is.
It's got a lot of moss, sticks. Yeah, a lot of
Old
moss.
trees. So,
It's pretty thick. Pretty tall.
some trees fall down.
Alright guys, we have a very special deer over here to our right. This doe
You guys,
has
look at
an
this.
orange ear tag, which means this is Kyle. Now Kyle is a very special deer because unfortunately she was abandoned by her mother. And thankfully for her though, she was born at Northwest Trek. And so she started to associate the keepers with food. So unlike the rest of the black-tailed deer out here in free roam who give the keepers a little bit of space, if Kyle sees a keeper, she'll just walk right up to them. So you guys got to see Kyle. I haven't seen her in a while. Back to the original question though, one of the ways that I could tell the age of this forest is actually by the trees here. These are all really big, really fast-growing leafy trees, so they're letting in a lot of sunlight and rainwater, which is letting in a lot, which is what's letting the grasses and stinging them here grow. Once these slower-growing trees catch up, though, like the fir, pine, and cedar, they block out a lot more sunlight, so the plants here start to be replaced with more shade-resistant plants. We can actually see that starting to happen as this forest is transitioning into a second-stage forest. These big leafy trees grow really quickly, but they don't live very long, only about 100 to 120 years old or so. So a lot of these trees have already reached the end of their lifespan and fallen over. We are going to be entering into a fully second stage forest up ahead as we make our turn, and you're going to notice the difference pretty clearly. For one thing, it will be a little bit darker due to that thicker tree canopy, but it's also going to have different plants. Rather than grass and stinging nettle, it's going to be mostly bracken ferns, sword ferns, mosses, lichens, and of course, dirt. On our left-hand side, we have Pothole. Pothole used to be Pothole Lake. It was a glacier lake that was created by a large glacier falling, making a big hole and melting into that hole over many years. Now, unfortunately, Pothole is no longer a lake as it has been shrinking, but you don't need to worry about it as it is still a pond or permanent wetland. It's not going to stay a permanent wetland forever though, as it will eventually shrink even more, but then it will become a seasonal wetland. So just like Mink Marsh, it is going to refill every rainy season and provide a good home for many different animals.
All these trees are so close together.
Now there is one animal out here in free roam that really loves hanging out by a Pothole. I haven't seen them yet, and normally they do show up on the other side from where we are now, if they show up at all, as you gotta remember, we do have over 435 acres for the animals to hide in, so appearing on tour is entirely voluntary on the animals' part. But regardless, let's keep our eyes peeled, and let's see if we can find any of our caribou today.
If you see any at this point.
Yeah, it's really white.
Oh, and I do see a caribou across the lake from us. If you see some branches that are pretty spindly out there, that is not branches, that is the antlers of one of our caribou bulls. And I believe that, yep, that is King Boo over there. We do have two caribou bulls here in free roam. We have King Boo over there. And Rusko isn't usually too far behind King Boo. Rusko is a very new member out here in free roam. He's only been out here for a couple of months. He was brought in for some more genetic diversity in our caribou herd. Now, him and King Boo are fast friends though, so usually if King Boo is around, Rusko is not too far behind. I do love seeing the caribou because they are a really cool member of the deer family. Now, for most deer species, it's only those males that will grow antlers, but both male and female caribou can actually grow them. We're going through a bit of a clearing here, so if you look straight across the lake from us, you will see King Boo with those big antlers. And if you left, you see one of our cow caribou, that is a girl. Now, both male and female caribou can grow antlers. There are still differences, of course. The male's antlers will typically be about 2 to 3 times larger than the females, but the girls, they hold on to their antlers a lot longer. Our bulls drop their antlers at the end of fall, whereas the girls hold on to their antlers all the way through the winter and into the spring. So as you can see, King Boo has had plenty of time to grow out those antlers. They're not fully grown yet, but they're getting there. Whereas the girls have only very recently dropped off their antlers, so they've only been growing their antlers in for a couple of weeks. Now, once the girls' antlers are full grown, they're going to be a little bit smaller than Boo's antlers are right now. Now, no one is entirely sure why female caribou grow antlers, as not even all of them do. Only about 40 to 60% of them can. It's just one of those mysteries of science. Now, we do have 2 main types of caribou here in North America. We have woodland caribou and barren ground caribou. Now, woodland caribou are barren ground caribou are typically higher up north, like in Alaska and Canada. So down here, we mostly had woodland caribou. Now, unfortunately, though, that is no longer the case, as caribou are actually considered locally extinct. There are no more caribou in the lower 48 states. Can anybody guess what year the caribou were deemed extinct?
2000s.
Now, if you guessed that caribou went extinct in 2019, you would be right.
Huh?
That was only 7 years ago. And the reason for that was habitat loss. You see, caribou rely on old growth forests. Those are the forests that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, to the point where not a lot really grows in them other than things like moss and lichen. Now, most animals, they don't really eat a ton of that, so they didn't bother living in the old growth forest. But caribou, they love it. They thrived on it. They really relied on it, especially to get them through the winter. During the winter, when most animals would be going
Chat, I'm
farther
still
south
here.
to stay warm, the caribou would actually go farther north,
Creighton, I'm still
deeper
here.
into those old growth forests. They would just feast on the moss.
You guys
and
at
lichens all winter
PFP?
long.
That's nice. Cool.
But unfortunately, most of our old growth forests were cut down, so the caribou lost their homes as well as an important food source. But not only that, with the old growth trees gone, the sunlight and rainwater was reaching the ground again, allowing the grass and stinging to pop up, which was bringing in other deer species like the moose, the elk, and the black-tailed deer. And those guys were bringing in predators and diseases. Things that while the caribou did have some experience with before, not on such large of a scale. So their numbers started to dwindle pretty quickly. There were many attempts to try and rebuild the populations down here by bringing down caribou from Canada and Alaska, but unfortunately none of those attempts were successful. So when the last herd of woodland caribou was found here in the Selkirk Mountains in 2019, it was decided that they be relocated to a breeding facility up in Canada to try and preserve the last of the lower 48's woodland caribou. I do say herd pretty generously though for that last group, as there was really only 3 members left, and all 3 of them were female. We are hopeful though that one day the caribou can return here. It is just going to take a long, long time. Those old growth forests, like the name suggests, are really old. They take at least 250 to 300 years to grow, let alone for us to get enough of them over a wide enough area to really support the caribou and their migrations. So it's not going to be in my lifetime, it's not going to be in your children's lifetime, it's probably not going to be in your children's lifetime. But hopefully one day the old growth forest can grow back and the caribou can return with them. Now, I'm still keeping my eyes peeled for any last minute animals, but if nothing else, we have gotten to go through a lot of different habitats today. Now, we've been through meadows, forests, wetlands, and really have just caught a glimpse of the beauty out here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the land that Trek sits on is actually the traditional homeland of the Nisqually people. The Nisqually people and many other Coast Salish tribes have lived on and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to do so today. We here at Trek know that healthy animals and healthy habitats rely on everyone doing their part to care for and protect nature. We want to thank you all for coming out and helping. The money you guys spend here at Trek goes towards conservation efforts all over the world, not just here at Trek. So you guys are actually helping to save animals you probably haven't even heard of yet, as well as making sure that we here at Trek can provide the best care possible to all the animals that call this place home. Now, I do unfortunately see Horseshoe Lake up ahead of us, which means we are out of time out here in free roam today. But it doesn't have to be the end of your day here at Trek. We do have plenty of other things in the core area of our park for you to go and do, and plenty of other animals to meet. We have predators that we can't have out here with all these pretty species, so we have our black bears, our grizzly bears, our wolves, foxes, lynxes, bobcats, cougars. We have our woodlands and wetlands where you can meet our beavers, badgers, river otter, skunks, marten, and raccoons. We have our birds of prey like our bald eagles, our golden eagle, our snowy owl, and our barn owls. And hey, if amphibians are more your thing, go check out Cheney Discovery Center. It is right up the hill from Tour Station, and that is where you can find our frogs, toads, and newts. We also have some other locations up there. We do have our cafe, so if you guys are a little hungry, you can go get some food in there. We have our kids trek, where the kids can run out any of the energy they've been storing up on our tram ride today. And if this really is the last thing you're doing today and you want to head home, we also just have our bathrooms up there that you're welcome to use before taking the trip. Now, while we are going through our gate system, it is a great time to look around you. Make sure you have everything you came here with today. Your phone, wallet, keys, camera, kids, basically anything you don't want to leave behind. I do recommend that everyone remain seated though until we come to complete stop at the tour station. We have hopefully made it this far in our tour without anybody losing a fight to gravity, and I would really like to keep up that winning streak. Once we do eventually pull up the tour station, the doors will unlock and someone will come to let you out. Just remember to watch your head and your step as you exit, because trust me, the doors on these trams are much shorter on the way out than they are on the way in. I do hope you all had a great time out there today. But if for some reason you didn't, you had an absolutely terrible time, 0 out of 10, you hated it, you are never coming back to this place ever again. Well then, my name was not Zephyr. I do hope you all had a great time out there though. We're about to pull up to tour station, so again, just watch your head and step as you exit. I hope you all had a great time out there, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
I see y'all, chat.